Hi guys, this is Paul Konchesky and you're listening to the Fulham Focus podcast. Enjoy.
Fulham. Hello, welcome to the Fulham Focus podcast. My name is Matt Boisclair and, well, we've signed some players. Before we get into that, just some quick housekeeping to say that in case you haven't noticed, we switched to 2 shows a week this season and you can expect a show on Monday and a show on Thursday as a general rule of thumb. This week we've waited for the transfer window to close, hence this show being a day late, but things will settle down next week. Okay, I'm joined by a man who's a postman by trade. He always delivers on the Fulham Focus podcast and has never faced a sack. It's Marty Ward. As they say on Sky Sports, happy transfer deadline day, mate.
Thank you very much. Happy transfer deadline day to yourself.
Thank you very much. And of course, it's Mr. Bombastic himself, Mr. Lover. It's Don Love. Are you good, my friend?
I am good. Looking forward to having this little discussion.
Excellent. So, the big news today, apart from the fact that we signed some players, is that the whole Sessegnon saga has been completed, and the young fella has joined Spurs, signed a deal until he signed for Spurs until 2025. Apparently, it's a record sale, although the fee is undisclosed, I think. His 25 goals in 120 games for Fulham will put him down in folklore, especially because of the way that it was intrinsically linked with our promotion back to the Premier League. Marty, what's your favourite memory of Sess?
Well, I think for me it's the Newcastle game, which a lot of people had written us off when we went over to there, and it was the Ryan Sessegnon show. And also, the last time he played for us in the Championship, his assist was the goal that got Cairney to score at Wembley. So, Indeed, what a way to end his time as Fulham in the Championship.
Amazing, yeah. What about you, Don? Favourite Sess memory?
There are a couple that stand out, or, that I went back and was looking at here over the last couple of days when I knew he was finally going to go bye-bye. I got to say his hat trick was really special, though. I believe it was his first, maybe his only hat trick with us. It was Sheffield United. He scored in like the 30th, 50th or something, and like the 80th minute. All 3 were beautiful goals.
Yeah, incredible. That 5-4 victory away at Sheffield United at Bramall Lane. Yeah, superb. I think for me it would be Millwall away during the promotion season when he was getting all sorts of stick from the Millwall fans who were trying to put him off, and he just came out and banged in that opening goal. Brilliant finish, poached onto the goalkeeper's spill, and then we went on to win 3-0. So, yeah, it's sad he's gone. I personally think it's a mistake, but I really wish him all the best, and you never know, hopefully he'll come back one day. But to some more positive news, we've signed some players. And as part of that Sessegnon deal, we brought in Josh Onoma from Spurs, a 22-year-old midfielder. Marty, happy with that?
Yeah, well, he seems to do the business, wherever he's sort of been. He's got experience in this league. And he's got a good track record as well, basically, as a youngster. So, we may have lost one of our own, but we're going to try to inherit one who will hopefully build on at Fulham Football Club. Well,
our resident Stato, Matt Arthur, has delved into the new signings' careers, and I'm assured by Stato that Onoma averages 2 goals a season in the Championship, and Tom Cairney averages 9 in the Championship, so he's obviously not prolific in front of goal. And he averages 3 assists a season compared to Tom Cairney's 7 in the Championship as well. So, Don, thoughts on Onoma? Are you happy that we've got a bit more backup in midfield at the very least?
Yeah, the midfield I think I'm feeling a lot better about, at least from what we brought in. So, yeah, I'm fine with the midfield. He may not be the goal scorer that we all want it to be, but we want people that create chances, and that's the big thing. Is we got to get people who create chances for Mitro. That's really the big thing. So Anybody who can do that is a win-win in my book.
Yeah, I'm not sure this guy will necessarily be a starter at the moment. Perhaps as McDonald tires in games, then he'll be brought on to kind of protect the back four. But again, it's more numbers in that area, which I think we all agreed that we did need at the start of this transfer window. So that's the guy, Anoma, that came in as part of the Sessegnon deal, and then of course the transfer window closed at 5 p.m. But these deals are still being announced as we record. It's now 9:15 on Thursday evening. Harrison Reid was announced around about an hour ago. He is a defensive midfielder that we've signed on loan from Southampton with a view to permanently signing him at the end of the deal. I remember seeing him play away at Carrow Road when we beat them 2-0, I think, during our promotion season. And I remember thinking that he was quite nasty, but perhaps that's the sort of player that we need in this team, Dom.
I don't want to say I don't really ever want to see a nasty person in a Fulham shirt. But I do want somebody who is not afraid to go and get stuck in, or when it's time, give back what you get or step up the game, so that we're just not getting walked all over and beaten up. So I don't mind somebody who is considered to be maybe a little nasty just because they are a very aggressive player. So I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, no, completely fair enough. And, I mean nasty in the same sense as, we've got Steph Joe, somebody who's not afraid to
There's only one Steph Joe.
Well, that's very true, but I think he may have some competition there. What do you think, Marty?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are trying to build a whole team of Steph Joes, basically. I mean, you've got Arta, Reid now who comes in, which is Reed. And I've heard that when he was at Blackburn, they really raved about how good he was, that he chased down every ball, nice short little passes. I think it's what we need. I know, we always say we're a bit soft, and I'm not saying we want a nasty player, but sometimes you just got to have that little bit of, toughness. And, Championship is a long season. So I think it's a good acquisition, I think.
It is. I believe he can play right back as well. And just looking at Stato's stats, Harrison Reid played for Norwich in the 17-18 season and Blackburn last season in the Championship, scored 4 goals in those 2 seasons and got 8 assists during those 2 seasons as well. 12 yellow cards, so I guess 6 yellow cards a season. As long as he can pad those out throughout the course of the season, then hopefully we won't see him get suspended. 82% pass succession compared to K-Mac's 86%. 2.1 tackles per game compared to K-Mac's 2 tackles per game. So I think we've definitely got somebody who's at the very least back up to K-Mac, if not potentially somebody who could start and have K-Mac back up for him. So yeah, welcome to the club, Harrison. We also, in the last hour or so, signed Bobby Reid on loan from Cardiff City. That is also another loan with a view to permanent. I remember him scoring in both games against us for Bristol City during the season when we came up. How do you feel about that one, Marty? Perhaps, we already had quite a few attacking options, but that just bolsters the attack.
Yeah, I'm happy about this one. When I heard that we were linked, I thought, no way Cardiff are going to get rid of him. And you could tell by Cardiff's fans' reaction to the fact that he's been sent out on loan to a permanent deal. He's a great sort of person that, we've been saying on this podcast that we just need that sort of extra person just behind Mitro. It's just got a bit of pace about him, and he's just perfect for it. He's got a good track record in the Championship as well. So I'm really excited about this. And of course, the bromance with Troy Bryan is I'm questionable already all over Twitter already.
Yeah, I saw that earlier. Yeah, that season in the Championship, 17-18, he scored 19 goals. So that's decent. That is really, really good that we've got him. I'm struggling to see. I can't see that he's going to play behind Mitrovic if we persist with 4-3-3, because who would he play instead of?
Well, I don't know if he's going to play him sort of, because he can play sort of as on the wing, but he's also, let's just say, instead of bringing AK as sort of the striker man and Mitro, I mean, it's just like Mitro's been on fire in pre-season, or I know it's only one game into the season, but it gives you that extra option, either be it on the bench. He's an attacking player. So let's say we're chasing a game with our lackluster defence. It's a threat. And scoring goals in this league is what we're going to need at the moment, because if we don't score, we're going to die.
Marty, if you saw, knocking on wood again here, if Mitchell got hurt, could you see him going up top?
Well, he's got a definite. I don't think he will be sort of winging balls in the air all the time, but he's definitely got the pace. I mean, if you can get Knockhart or Ivan getting him that right ball, and he gets running onto it, he's a very hard man to beat.
Okay.
Yeah, and let's say Mitrovic is tired in a game, then look at the options we've got. I know it's a completely different option because Bobby Reid is half of his size, but you could bring him on and just have him running at defenders as opposed to just Mitrovic's tactic of out-muscling people. It's definitely another option. We've got a fantastic attacking threat in this division now. What do you think, Dom?
Well, we've got so many new signings that are more in the midfield attacking, or some supposedly stronger defensive players that could play that kind of K-Mac role. It makes you wonder, is there going to be a kind of a change this season to our formation? Could we possibly go in more aggressive and get away from a 4-3-3 or 4-4-2? Could we possibly see a 3-5-2, and stack the midfield up? So
it's definitely good to have options. It's very rigid, isn't it? To say we just play 4-3-3 is very rigid. And we've moaned before in the past about not having a plan B. Potentially now we do.
Well, that was the big problem. You're right. I don't mean to cut you off there. You're right. Sure. That was the problem we had with Slab. Is Slab only played one way, and everybody complained. No other option, no plan B. Well, okay, this could be a very potential different option here. You want to have different plans for different teams and different games. Also, you want to have different plans based on what players are available. So, with a midfield stack like this, we very potentially could see a much different formation than we're normally used to seeing. Also, again, when everybody complained last year that Mitchell was not getting the service, it looks like they've brought in players now that can potentially put the service in and let him see the ball more. And that's what he needs.
Also, I just want to add quickly, we've built a lot of pace into this team all of a sudden. The one thing that we were talking about in the Premier League was that this team lacks a lot of pace. With Ivan, Knockhart, and now you bring in Reid into the mix, it really is a scary combination. And no defender likes a player that's going to run at them.
Yeah,
and of course, championship experience as well.
This means K-Mac, Johansson, and Tom, they could be very well fighting for their spots to be starting.
But that's a good thing, though. We want some competition. We don't want any player in this team to just think I'm a guaranteed starter. So that's really good, and that's what we call for. And we spoke about this on the pod last week, Don. You and I were both on together, and we were talking about how the midfield of Johansson, K-Mac, and Cairney, if any of those got injured, then who was there? There was nobody else. It looked very, very light. But now we've got numbers, and of course we signed Harry Arter a couple of days as well. Scott Parker's brother-in-law. I know Scott Parker's married to his sister, I think. 29 years old, player of the season for Bournemouth when they went up to the Premier League in 2015 and played 25 times for Cardiff in the Premier League last season as well. So, again, it's another player who really pads out that midfield.
It is, and obviously we'll know Reid, who has just joined us as well. So that kind of helps. Plus, he's also known as the legendary Leave It guy in the Watford game when he played for Bournemouth. It's a sly move, but I like it.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm not sure I'm too keen on that, but yeah, sure. He's another good player, and that's what we needed. Don, thoughts on Harry Arter? Are you happy with that? It seemed like a shoo-in as soon as Scott Parker got a job as manager that Harry Arter was going to be linked.
I am going to trust in Parker, that Scotty knows this guy better than anyone. And if Scotty said, I want him, he's got to be a good player. And I can only hope, or I can only assume he's going to be a great player for us and do great things. So if Scotty wanted him, I'm glad he got him.
Good stuff. All right, well, they're the players that we signed then. We do seem to be a little bit light at the back still. We've not signed any defenders. Marty, what are your thoughts? I mean, it seems like our tactic this season is going to be let's camp out in the opposition's box and hope that we don't get caught on the break.
It's almost like the mentality of defense. What stinking defense? It's an issue we've had for a very long time, and obviously Matt Arter, the new signing of this podcast, no relation to when we signed, Stato. He sent us, as you may know, by the end of December last year, we had conceded 43 goals in the 20 Premier League games. Since then, we've only had 2 transfer windows to pass and have only signed 1 defensive reinforcement, which was Nordveit, to try to fix this. It's something we've been highlighting every time Tony Khan or Fulham put any tweet out. Every time it was the one word, defenders. We all thought we were going to get one, and unfortunately, it's just not happened. And I think that's the only downside to this transfer window. Is just we've not helped out that defence.
Yeah, as I say, we're recording this on Thursday evening, and deals are still being announced. But it looks unlikely now that we're going to bring in a defender. I think somebody said Simon Peach tweeted earlier that we were going to sign Michael Hector today, but it was all hinging on the Ryan Sessegnon deal, and because that took so long to go through, then it just didn't happen for us with Hector. But it looks like that may happen in January. So, but between now and January, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's madness. I mean, I've already said how much of a fan I am about Michael Hector. I mean, he really did an incredible job at Sheffield Wednesday. And when I heard that he was linked to a 5 million move, I thought we need to go for this. Unfortunately, I think we've left it down to the whole Ryan Sessegnon being sold, because everything was done by about 3:30. We just didn't have enough time. Obviously, Simon Peach is saying something in regards of that we'll have him by January, which, if we could just be there or thereabouts, we could have kind of one of those seasons in the Championship like we did when we got Mitro and Taggart. So, but yeah, I mean, he's a really good signing. I was really hoping we were going to announce it today, but unfortunately, that's just the problem when you leave it to the last day.
It's funny because you were writing on the WhatsApp group last night, where are the defenders? Where are the defenders? And I said, don't worry, it's going to happen tomorrow. There's no way that we'd break the bank on holding on to Mitrovic and Cairney and not address the problem at the back. But it would seem that that's exactly what's happened. Don.
Okay, I agree with everything you guys have just said. Everybody knows center backs, center backs, center backs. We've been screaming for it. We've been wanting it. I am very disappointed we did not bring in one new big powerful kind of center back that just commands the area. So that is a big disappointment. I applaud Tony Khan for the midfield and the attack. I think he's done what looks like on paper a wonderful job. The defense is going to worry me this whole season. Now, it does beg to ask the question, does that mean maybe some of the PL2 under 18s are going to, come up and play in some of the games, maybe some of the early cup games or different things. Maybe that means that Marlon Fossey or Steven Sessegnon is going to be able to come up and play. Who knows? But I do think we've got some problems at the center backs and the defense in general. So once again, I don't know, maybe they're going to switch to a 3-5-2 and they're going to rely on pack it in with K-Mac and different defensive midfielders instead. So who knows what the plan is here, but it is very, very, very disappointing to me that we did not get any real defenders in.
Yeah, agreed. Well, let's just finish on a positive note and just once again, those players that we did sign this time, okay, they are all loan players with the exception of Anoma. We've got Cavallero, Knockhart, the 2 Reids, Arter, and they're all with a view to signing a permanent contract. So if they do well, then at the end of it, we'll be able to keep the squad together, which is where we went when we went up last time. The squad was just decimated.
Well, and that makes you think that, once again, Tony Khan must be learning from his mistakes. People keep saying he's not learning. Well, that kind of shows he is learning from his mistakes. He realized we cannot get promoted with a bunch of loan players that we cannot keep permanently.
Yeah, that's a completely fair point. All right, well, it's been a mixed transfer window. We've had some good news and some not brilliant news on the defender front. Let's move on to the Blackburn game this weekend. And I caught up with Morgs recently to talk about a certain former player of theirs.
Fulham.
It's our first home game of the season on Saturday, so what better way to get us in the mood for facing Blackburn than by chatting about a former player of the year of theirs and our current captain, Tom Cairney. I'm joined by Morgan Calton. Morgs, how are you doing, mate? Have you had a good summer?
I'm all right. Yeah, not bad. No, I'm looking forward to, moving on with the season now. See how it goes, really.
Yeah, it's nice to have a nice summer upset by Fulham right at the tail end of it, isn't it?
Just as the weather's getting good again.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
get the storm clouds in and
yeah. Good stuff. All right, so we're going to talk about Tom Cairney. So I don't know about you, but before he signed for Fulham, I knew very little about him. I don't even know if I'd heard of him, to be honest. What were your thoughts when he signed? Were you excited?
I was pretty much in the same boat as you were. I'd heard his name before, and I'd heard, sort of people sort of say, oh, he's an exciting young player. But I guess that was probably all towards the lead up of him signing for us. I think when he was developing as a player at Hull, I was probably still in Australia because I didn't move back until 2012. So he was probably sort of there, and I didn't really pay attention to youth players of teams.
What? You weren't paying attention to what was going on at Hull City whilst you were living in Australia?
No, I was more concerned with the Perth Glory youth team and stuff like that. I wasn't seeing sort of the next big thing come through the Aussie soccer ranks. But no, I kind of when he sort of signed, I thought, okay, great. It shows a bit of ambition to bring a young player who sort of, in these cases, always looked at sort of the reactions of the fans of the team that he's leaving. And in this case, I think Blackburn fans were pretty upset that he'd gone. And so that gave everyone a little bit of optimism that we were heading in the right direction. Because I think having come off the previous couple of seasons, whilst we were still showing ambition in the transfer market, our team had gone to shit.
We went down from the Premier League in 2014. Yep. Then the next season, 2014-2015, Felix Magath was sacked in September. Kit Symons was eventually brought in, and we finished 17th. That season was just bloody disaster, to be honest.
Yeah, it was awful.
But then the following summer, first to arrive was Ben Pringle,
legend.
Then Andy Lonergan, and then Tom Cairney. And I think Tom Cairney signed for about £3 or £4 million. So he kind of followed those other two in. Ben Pringle had done okay at Rotherham, I think, and I don't even remember where Lonergan came from, the goalkeeper.
Preston,
but that was it. But that was the kind of level.
Oh no, that was very pretty. I can't remember. No, but
yeah, that was the kind of level of player that we were signing at the time. So to then bring in Cairney, and of course, when you sign a player, you kind of have a look on YouTube and watch their highlights reel, and the highlights reel are never going to show anything awful. And the goals that he was scoring at Blackburn were fantastic. So there was a reason to be optimistic. Yeah,
well, I'm never a big... Well, I guess everyone does the YouTube search when you sign a player. I did one for AK when he signed, and I thought this player's going to be an absolute beast. But he was a beast, or is a beast. Yeah. And so,
in so many
ways. You can't really trust YouTube as much as everyone would like to. But I think I tend to go on sort of the reputation of a player, even if I didn't know who he was. So I think it was quite exciting to have a young, exciting player. Ben Pringle, in all fairness to him, he was okay, but when you sort of get a player like him signed, it's not really going to turn too many heads. And so I think, going when Cairney came in and when he got on the pitch and we could see what he could do, I think that's when it was like, okay, great. We are signing the right caliber of player if we're bringing him in.
Well, he scored in his first home game. I think it was against Brighton. It was a typical Tom Cairney goal. He's kind of let the ball go across him along the ground, and then he's bent it into the top corner with his left foot, and I think it got goal of the month. But it was a really good goal, and most of the goals that he scores are fantastic, to be honest. So, it's a really obvious answer, and perhaps we should probably dance around the obvious one. But what is your favourite memory of Tom Cairney aside from Wembley?
Well, that's the thing. I've in the lead to this, I was like, looking at sort of his goals and what he'd done, and obviously the big thing that stands out is the Wembley goal. But then obviously there's the Leeds goal, which as well as being a goal that clawed us back into the playoff race, was just a fantastic goal. I think his one, against Brighton. I was sitting in the Riverside stand. I saw how much it curled, and sort of like, the graft that he put in to get the ball, because it was a great move, and the ball was flying all over the place, and he'd gone to the touchline, got it, and brought it back in, and then it was a little 1-2 with I think it was O'Hara of all players. So that was exactly Braintree or Billericay legend. But it was that sort of drive and sort of the way he chased the ball and sort of endeavor to get hold of it and stuff. That sort of you look at a player like that and you go, oh, okay, he's got that little bit extra that we seem to be missing. And so when he scored that goal, I was like, okay, this is, we like what we see. We carry on seeing a bit more of this. In terms of it's hard to pick a favorite moment because he's done so well. When he's been good, he's been very, very good. And I'm sure we'll move on to sort of dips and stuff a bit. But I think my favourite goal, if we're sort of talking about that as well, was the one against Wolves.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
And
what a finish!
It was brilliant. I mean, I sort of watched it a couple of times again, a little while ago, and it's not so much that he blasts it in; he actually side foots it in.
He kind of wraps his foot around it and bends it away from the goalkeeper, doesn't he?
Yeah, it was perfect, and I think that showed how good his technique is. And so whilst the Wembley goal was memorable, and the Leeds goal was just was a brilliant finish and sort of under pressure, I think from a technique point of view, that really shows what kind of player he is.
Yeah, I mean, he does have fantastic technique. We know that. And aside from the injuries, for me, he's kind of the ultimate big game player at this level. Because you look at the goals that he scored, and you mentioned the Wolves game and the Brighton game, but big games he does score in. You look at Wembley, obviously. You look at the Reading playoff semi-final, derbies against Brentford away and QPR away. He does pop up with fantastic goals. And, of course, the Leeds one as well. So he pops up at the right time in all these games. And I think he's going to be massive for us again this season.
I know. I totally agree. I think if he stays injury-free, he will be the catalyst for us being, either in the top two or in the playoffs. We need him to be on song for Fulham to be on song. Obviously, Mitro scoring is key, but having Cairney and that creative player is so integral to the way we play. And I think with the fact that he is he is our captain, I'm sure we'll move on to that as well. And the fact he loves the plaudits. You can tell that. He loves it when we're doing well, and he's able to sort of show how good he is. And I think we're going to have to see a lot of that. And I think just thinking back to that QPR game, I remember that so clearly because I'd broken my ankle a couple of weeks before, and we were at Loftus Road, and it had been snowing, and it was the whole sort of stand was gritted, and it was absolutely freezing, and my toes almost turned black by the end of the match. Sort of just like how crazy everyone was going, and he was absolutely loving it. And it just shows that whilst he does have his off days, he does have it in him, and he does have that motivation to really sort of score the big goals, to really sort of like get the fans going again, and sort of even a one-legged me was sort of dancing up and down the stand.
No, fair play. I mean, you're right as well. He does love the plaudits, but when we lost to Reading in the playoffs semi-final, what was it? No, 2 years ago. He was straight on to social media afterwards, and he posted sorry we couldn't do it for you this time. But I remember him saying, "You've got your Fulham back," and I remember thinking, yeah, actually we have, because we've had a couple of crap seasons. 2015-16, we finished 20th, and that was a season when we had Kit Simons, then Peter Grant took over for a bit, then Stuart Gray took over, then finally Slav got the job, and he managed to get us to 20th, and we hung in there. But then the next season was the one when we lost to Reading, and we actually had a team to be proud of, and Cairney was an integral part of that. And we talk about how integral he is to the team. My only concern this season is actually we have nobody else like him. and there's no cover for him. So he probably will have an injury at some point, because he always seems to each season. He's almost targeted as well. I remember being at Derby away the season we went up, and he was absolutely clattered into, and I think his boot might have been ripped. I thought he was going to have to go off, and he was quite annoyed by the tackle. So people do target him because he can dance through defenders. But like I say, we don't have anybody else like him, and if we can't keep him fit, then it is a real cause for concern as to what we're going to do.
Yeah, and you look at his, how many games he's missed through injury in the last 2 seasons, and sort of looking at it, I think he missed about He missed a good 10 games last season of a 38 game season.
I've got the stats here. I don't have the sub appearances, and this is in all competitions. But in 15-16, he scored 8 goals in 42. So 42 appearances, not bad. In 16-17, he scored 13 in 51, so he played most of that season. 17-18, he scored 6 goals in 37, and then last season he got the one against Everton, I think it was, in 33. So in actual fact, 42, 51, 37, 33, that's not a bad return for somebody who does appear to be injured quite a lot.
I guess the one sort of big thing about that is that, he clearly has a long-standing injury, and has it cleared up, or are the team rushing him back into management team rushing him back in because he is so integral to the way we play? And that's my big fear about him, is that whilst he does, he is sort of, he runs the sort of creative side of it. If he is injured, and if it is a bad injury that hasn't properly sort of healed, then, does it leave him in a position where in the very near future, he's going to get another one, and that's him done? Now, that's the thing that does concern me. Mainly because the one that he got in the promotion season, it was pretty bad. It looked, he was getting all that sort of rehab, going over Spain to try and sort of get it fixed and all that. And then picked it up again at the beginning of last season. And you could tell that he wasn't quite right when he came back. Now, the big hope is that the sort of form that he was showing towards the end of last season made us think that, maybe the injury is properly healed now. And I guess the key is sort of seeing how he goes in the first sort of, 5 to 10 games of this season. But I think it's pretty easy to spot when he's not quite right. And I think if, it does raise its ugly head again, then we could have a bit of a problem. But I mean, obviously, fingers crossed, touch wood, it won't be, and it's all sort of sorted.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. Let's really hope we can keep him fit for as long as possible, because we're going to need him, especially over the course of a 46-game season. I think we should probably look or touch at least upon Wembley. We can't do a chat about Tom Cairney and just go, well, let's forget about Wembley. Memories of that day? That was the last game we played, I guess, in the Championship, even though it wasn't actually in the Championship, but it was the Championship game. What are your memories of that day? Amazing, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, but I mean, infamously, I wasn't there.
Ah, man, weren't you?
Yeah, that was the big thing. It was like,
didn't fancy it?
No. I only do the big games. I remember getting interviewed on, I think it was on one of his Love Sport radio about it, pre-game, and so are you looking forward to it? I'm like, well, I would be if I was going, but I had a wedding that day, and I couldn't get out of it. So I was there on my phone watching it.
What inconsiderate bastard had a wedding on that day? I hope you're not friends with him anymore.
Well, he lives in Singapore. Good riddance. Yeah, and he's a Palace fan as well. So
shocking.
I know. But yeah, I was watching it. Friend and I both, we're both watching it on our phone, and it was just watching it. I was just like, at the end of the game, I was just sort of like, obviously, I was quite a few drinks down by that point as well, so it was a bit emotional. And but it was just seeing the crowd and him, and obviously the whole team, but him. You could see the pride that he was that was beaming from his face. He'd done something special. Everything that had sort of gone wrong over the past couple of seasons, that was all forgotten. And that was the time that you thought, this is the man who has got us back up again. And yeah, I think that is just, it shows, I hate using the term Mr. Fulham because I don't think he's got to that point yet. But he's, you could tell that he loves the club. And I think, obviously come on to sort of contracts and all that stuff as well. But he does, there is a certain sort of, part of him, like a lot of players that come to Fulham, there is a bit of a special club. And so I think, you can definitely tell that was just that little bit more special, having done it for us, as opposed to maybe.
I think so. I think he's intrinsically linked with Fulham forever now because of that goal as well. He's the first person to ever score for Fulham at Wembley, the first Fulham captain to lift a trophy at Wembley. There's so many elements to that day that will make sure that his name is always going to be thought of as a Fulham player as opposed to with any other club. And of course, as you say, he keeps signing these contracts at the end of every season. So he's here for another 5 years, and he said he wants to finish his career here. Can you see that happening, or do you think if we don't go up in the next season or two that his head might be turned?
It's always hard with footballers nowadays, isn't it? I mean, you watch them, you listen to them, you read their tweets, see their Instagram posts, whatever, and you'd think, oh, this man would die for the club. But reality is, if his agent were to get a nice big juicy offer from a team in the Premier League and we hadn't gone up this season, then there's a good chance that the club would sell and he'd move on. But from a personal view, you look at him and you go, well, why would you want to leave? You go to another team, you've on the back of, a good couple of years of sort of, injuries, you're loved by the fans, you're the club captain, and you're not going to be on a small amount of money. And so I do think that he will be here for the foreseeable. I can't see him being one of those players that plays till he's 36, 37. So at, what is he, 20? He's 28 now. I think we'll get into the end of his career, if not till, the penultimate year of his career, then he might. Well,
if he sees out this contract, which is 5 years, then he'll be very close to a testimonial, which is unheard of in this day and age, really, isn't it? Or very, very rare.
I think the last testimonial we saw was Simon Morgan, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Nobody sticks around at Fulham for that long anymore. Different times.
But I think, he's got it made at Fulham. He is a very, very good Championship player. Didn't shine in the Premier League like, a lot of outside supporters would have thought, like sort of, West Ham fans, Everton fans, or whatever, who sort of looking at him and knew about him, were thinking, oh no, he'll be, be excellent, because West Ham fans were like, oh yes, we'll sign him at the end of the season. That didn't happen. I think, they were just expecting a bit more from him. But I think from Fulham fans' point of view, it was very much, that injury was still there. So I think, a season down in the Championship, see him fit again, see how, sort of get him back into the groove. And I think, if he gets us up into the Premier League again, fantastic. I think even if we stay down, I think he'll just want to sort of keep going. Unless, it's an absolute unmitigated disaster and he's just like, you know what? No, I'm out of here.
I hope that doesn't happen. I hope he stays. I'd like to think that he would finish his career here. He seems very settled. His girlfriend is from the area, I believe, and now they've just had Aubrey as well, their little son. So I'd like to think that they're settled enough to stay, and he seems to have his head screwed on and be a family man. So. Hopefully we'll have him for years to come, and he'll still be performing. That's the key thing. We don't want Tom Cairney if he's not going to be performing and he's going to be injured all the time. So let's hope we can keep him fit and he carries on doing the business.
But what do you think? I mean, sort of my big thing about him being around for the foreseeable is that he will be if he's captain. And I've said it on a number of podcasts in the past that I don't think that he is. A proper captain in the sense that, K-Mac might be, or you look at a lot of other captains. I think he is loved by the fans. I think he is a great player in the team, but he's not as noisy as you'd expect from a captain. But
some captains just aren't like that. Some captains are said to lead by example by the way they play.
But do you need? I mean, you don't. Sometimes the captain isn't the best player. The captain is the guy that gets his players up when they're down. And I remember sort of at the Birmingham game last game of the regular season of the Championship. That was the one where, a few of us walked up there. We got there and 2-0 down or 3-0 down or whatever it was. And even after sort of the first goal going in, you could see his head visibly drop. And then secondly, it was so clear. It's like, the thing about a captain is that their head should never drop. Their head should always be held high, and they should be motivating their players to sort of, rise up and sort of fight back. But that's one thing that I don't think you ever see from him, which, I don't want to sort of pick holes in his game because, he is that player that is, integral to us going up again. But as a captain, I really do question it. And obviously, if you were to take the captaincy away from him and give it to someone who, might come in the future who is a born leader, then that would cause him to go, or at least would cause him to sort of, go into a bit of a soul call, whatever. So I think if we do have him for the next 5 years and he's our captain for the next 5 years, I think we are missing out a little bit.
It's a difficult one when it comes to the captaincy, I think. I don't think you could take the captaincy off him and expect him to remain happy. And I think if you take the captaincy off him, then it will affect his game because there's the potential for him to sulk.
Yep.
But I think all the while that you have leaders on the pitch alongside him anyway, I don't think it necessarily matters who wears the armband, because you see it all the time anyway. Who was doing the rallying speech at the end at Wembley? In the dressing room, it wasn't Cairney. It's Kevin McDonald. Who when they get in the huddle on the pitch, Cairney's not the one that's doing the talking. It's somebody else. So it is a strange setup, but it doesn't really bother me if he's captain or not, as long as we're getting results. Because as long as there's somebody else on that pitch that's doing the vocal job that you'd expect from a captain, I don't think it really matters, and it doesn't seem to bother the other players either.
No, and I don't think it bothers anyone there at all. It just seems a bit odd, and you kind of almost see it in his eyes. He knows his limitations in that sort of aspect, and you kind of, it almost seems like it's just professional pride now, making sure that he is still captain. But whatever. I mean, the key is that he stays fit, helps us get up, and and plays his best football. And as you say, he'll lead by example. There are players around him that will sort of need to look at him for inspiration to keep going. Even if he's not shouting at them, you want to see him, with the skills that he has at his disposal.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, well, Danny and I spoke last week about Louis Saha, who obviously left Fulham quite some time ago. He left in, 2004, I think it was, so 15 years ago. And we were reflecting back. Yeah, I know, me too. But we were reflecting back on his career, quite misty-eyed at times, and it got me thinking about Tom Cairney. In 15 years' time, how do you think Fulham fans will remember Tom Cairney?
It has to be the Wembley goal, doesn't it? That's the first thing that will come to mind. I mean, that's the piece of footage that will get replayed whenever he's sort of brought into the pitch or comes on the big screen or whatever. He's scored a lot of good goals for us. A lot of them have meant something, and that one would have meant the most up to now. Who knows what he's going to do in the next couple of years. Exactly.
It kind of depends on what happens in the next few years. But I'm thinking if as captain he gets us promoted again and stays at the club and sees his contract out, I'm thinking there is potential for a statue there at some point if it goes that way.
But the key is, will they get the hair right?
Well, that's very true, actually. Yeah, you see some of these statues; they're bloody awful these days, aren't they?
I know. You don't want a Ronaldo statue again.
No, exactly. Awful. But it's just hypothetical, and it just came to me then when we were talking about it as to how he's going to be remembered. But you don't know how it's going to pan out in the next few years. But he scored a goal at Wembley. He lifted a trophy at Wembley. He's been quite successful whilst he's been here. There's been a lot of progression under him. If he plays a load of games for us and carries on with success, then he might be talked about in those sort of terms. You never know.
I agree. I think if again, if there's another promotion and then a season in the Premier League where we do a lot better, and then maybe another season after that, I think I think in the later years we could be looking back at him in statue terms.
Yeah, maybe. I think so.
That's something to live. Yeah, it's something to live up to for him anyway.
Quite. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, he's had his ups and he's had his downs. Quite literally, he was captain when we were relegated, and last season, no manager could really find the right place to play him. But so far, he's been here 4 full seasons. About to start season number 5. What would you give his Fulham career so far out of 10? Taking everything into consideration, and as I said to Danny last week, show your workings.
Okay, so in the pros column,
Danny ended up giving Louis Saha a 9.8 last week.
even despite the blonde hair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's losing 0.2 a point. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think the promotion, the goals, some of the vision in his passes. I mean, you look at some of the goals, the sort of assists and assist to assists that he's put in over the last few years, and that is a proper talented footballer right there. Service, yeah. I mean, one thing, I think maybe him, his agent, have held the club to ransom a couple of times, maybe in the early stages of his career. I think maybe the renewal of his contract this time was to make sure that he didn't have his relegation wage drop implemented, but whatever, that's business. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I think from service to the club, service, fan love, etc., got to give him a 10. Injuries, got to drop a couple of points because he's clearly had a bit of a hard time with it. I'll give him a solid 8 for his career to date.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with an 8. I think in terms of value for money and just being a flair player that fans want to see, I think he's probably been my favourite player over the since we were relegated from the Premier League last time. I think he's probably been my favourite player, along with Mitrovic. But Cairney's been there a bit longer. He's been consistent. Like we've said, he does struggle with his injuries and occasionally with his form. But that he's got that wand of a left foot, and at any given moment, he could stick one in the top corner from anywhere.
And I think, he'll be trying to prove a point this season. As much as wanting to get Fulham promoted, on a personal level, he'll be wanting to show the fans what he can do again. He'll be wanting to show those people that sort of said, we didn't do as well in the Premier League as we expected. He wants to show them that was a blip. He wants to get us back up there, and he wants to do it in the best way possible. So I'm really excited about this season, actually. I think, defence aside, I think, we have a very strong team. And if these key players stay fit, I think, he will help us drive forward. And I think we could be looking at a good one. And I really hope I don't come back to eat my words in about 6 months' time.
No, you've got to start each season with hope. If we're just wait to be proved wrong otherwise.
Yeah.
Okay, great stuff. I think that just about covers Tom Cairney. Thanks for joining me, Morgs. It's been great to speak to you. It's been a little while.
Pleasure.
We'll pass it back to the guys for the main show, and there'll be another one of these next week.
Fulham.
All right, so it's Blackburn at home this weekend. The Whites will be looking to bounce back after the disappointing result against Barnsley last weekend. Fulham and Blackburn have met 91 times previously, with Fulham winning 28 of those matches and losing 38. So we've got a bit of ground to make up there. And we've only won 2 of the last 8 meetings as well. The last time we met Blackburn at the Cottage was back in March 2017, where we drew 2-2. And 7 players who were in the squad that day are still with us. And that's Ream, Cairney, Steph Joe, K-Mac, Cabano, Adoy and Betts. And I think we're probably going to see Cairney, Steph Joe, K-Mac, Adoy and Betts all start again. So that's 5 of those players. Last season, Blackburn had a really bad away record. They only won 6 of their 23 away games. I say really bad. I mean, it's far better than our away record was last season in the Premier League. They only kept 4 clean sheets away and 12 overall. They conceded 48 goals away from home, which is an average of over 2 goals a game. With our attack this season, guys, surely we're going to be banging some goals in this weekend. We haven't scored yet this season. It's got to be our time, hasn't it, this weekend?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I think the one thing we need to do is we need a reaction from, Saturday we just seemed to be, I don't know, hungover, a little bit shell shocked. There was no sort of formation. No one knew what they were doing. So, first game back at the cottage in the Championship, minus the Riverside stand. So that's going to make things a bit weird. And we just need to get back to what we're good at. I mean, if we're going to be good at attacking, then we're hoping to see lots of goals. I definitely am hoping to see Mitchell on the score sheet, maybe see some of the new signings, but we've got to play well, because otherwise the pressure will just be more on the team and Scott Parker.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we get off to a good start this weekend. The atmosphere will start off really well, as it generally does for the first home game of the season. But at the first sign of the first mistake and the start, people will start to groan, then that could affect the players. So I think we just need to be patient, let the players set into a rhythm, and hopefully the quality that we've got will just be too much for Blackburn. What do you think, Dom?
Well, obviously, we just got all these players in. That is the other bad part that, really does kind of get on my nerves here. We don't do our business quick enough in the window. They don't have time to settle in, gel, kind of learn Parker's system or the new system. So I don't foresee any of these guys really coming in, starting, except we all said, maybe Knockhart, maybe he comes in instead of AK or something. But the rest of them I don't foresee seeing. So it is what it is as far as players for options for this game. So hopefully, Blackburn have been struggling for years. It's my understanding they didn't do a whole lot in the transfer window as far as what I've looked.
Well, I can tell you exactly what they did in the transfer window up until today. I don't know who they bought in on transfer deadline day, but they bought in Stuart Downing, the former England left winger, on a free. They signed Bradley Johnson, who's a central midfielder, also for nothing. A striker, Sam Gallagher from Southampton, for $5 million. And they bought in Christian Walton, who is a goalkeeper, who replaces their goalkeeper, David Raya, who played most of last season for them and kept 10 clean sheets. But I think he was sold to Brentford in the summer. So, and they've also loaned in Toshin Adarabiayo. Yeah, that must be how you say it. he's a centre half from Man City.
You say that better than I would have. So this is going to come back to haunt me, but to me, that just sounds like mid-table to lower table.
Yeah,
not really punching above their weight or trying to do a whole lot, but just make sure they're not relegated. That's all that kind of says to me. That doesn't say anything exciting. Now, with that said, our options that Tony Khan has brought in, kind of make me excited for the attack. So I'm hoping this is one of those games we do well with the players we've got, future players settle in, and we just start banging in the goals left and right and have a great season.
Yeah, no, completely fair enough. And Tony Mowbray's their manager at Blackburn, and he's had some success, I think, at West Brom in the past. So they have got a manager who knows how to get out the Championship. And they've also got Bradley Dack, who's been their best player for the last couple of seasons. He scored 18 goals last season and got 10 assists. And I think they would have done well to hang on to him today if it looks like they have. So I think he was linked with a move away. So he's potentially their biggest threat. And yeah, I mean, hopefully our new midfielders can keep him quiet.
Well, you mentioned the manager, Tony. If I remember correctly, he's a defender, and he knows this division well. So I'll bet you his back will be fairly well organized, which means we just got to step up that midfield. We've got to step up the pressure. Yeah,
completely agree. But that being said, Blackburn did lose their first game last week as well. They lost at home to Charlton, who, of course, newly
2-1.
Yeah, they're newly promoted side. So yeah, it's something's got to give this weekend. And I guess for me, I predicted a huge away win at Barnsley last week. I didn't foresee that performance at all, but I did say on last week's show that I am usually wrong. So I'm gonna first of all leave it to Marty to give a score prediction for the game at the weekend.
Oh, gee, thanks for that, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Blackburn are on the up. I mean, they've had 7 seasons or more of just disarray with ownership, and as probably many of us are aware, Bradley Dack is a very good player, and obviously he's going to be key to everything that's going to happen going forward. So with our mediocre defence, which I'm hoping will be a bit more stingy this time, that's where the person we need to shut up. But I mean, they've got good players all over the field. Stuart Jowning always has a good game against us, so I'm not going to take this game too lightly. But I am going to say I'm going to go for a 2-1 win, and hopefully we score first just to settle nerves.
Yeah, fair enough. And do you see there being many changes from last week's lineup against Barnsley, potentially knock up for AK, or do you see anybody else coming in?
Realistically, I think Knockhart should start. I prefer AK coming on as sort of like that. Oh my God, AK's coming on in the last 10 minutes. As a defender, looking at that, it's just terrible. And obviously we've got Reid as a threat. I've got a feeling Scotty's probably going to stick with this same 11 minus Le Marchand, because I think he may be injured. We'll have to see what the press is tomorrow. But yeah, I think he's going to stick with the same team. I think a lot of the new players are just going to be on the bench and integrated into the team. So that's what I feel might happen.
So do you think then that if Le Marchand isn't available, that Dennis Adoy plays centre half and Cyrus Christie plays right back?
That is correct, yeah. A lot of
okay.
people thought Christie was going to be sold in this window or something like that, but I think he'll start this weekend.
Yeah, no, fair point. Okay, what about you, Don? First of all, let's have a score prediction.
I agree, 2-1. I believe in Stato-Mato here, and if I go by what he said, 48 goals conceded by Blackburn in their away matches, so 2.1 per game. If that's the case, I think we're going to score somewhere in the first half. Somewhere in the second half, Blackburn will kind of get a little bit of gas. They'll get one, but we'll get a second one. So no worries, 2-1. As far as the lineup goes, I do think AK-47 is back on the bench. I think Knockhart comes out between him on the right, and then Ivan on the left, Tom, Johansson, McDonald. The back four, this will be interesting to see what happens. Brian, obviously. Lima Sean probably out. I'm going to guess Tim Ream comes in. Tim Ream, Mawson, Adoy on the bench, Christie sitting in. Okay. So in the back four is kind of a weird one right now. So who really knows what will happen? But I think that's probably going to be the back fours. Adoy to the bench, Christie's on. Now, the other thing I will say is this might be, with all these new signings, this might be the last time that Luca Del Torre makes the bench, because I can't see him competing with a lot of these new signings. So,
well, I don't think anyone's going to lose too much sleep over that. I've seen him play a few times, did a few friendlies, and
as an American, I've always hoped for him to be, that next guy that comes up and comes through the ranks. But I just don't know about it this year. Now that they brought in all these signings, I could see him going out on loan or, moving on to a first division team or something. So sad, but it is what it is.
Also, just add into that, I feel like will we see Steven Sessegnon make the bench now? Because obviously there's a lot of hype behind him, and will he make the step forward?
Actually, that is the one person I could see making the bench. Just because look at that back lineup.
The other player I would like to see is Matt O'Reilly. Heard a lot of good things, obviously, regarding him, and what I saw of him was very good. Linked to many sort of big clubs, but again, I think he's going to find it very difficult to get on that team at the moment.
Yeah, but hopefully he's going to be that kid that some of the cup games and different things, he gets a big push and thrown in.
Those players will certainly feature in the cup games, but we signed 4 players today. They're going to all be on the bench at the weekend, I would think, for absolute sure. Plus, then you've got a goalkeeper, so I can't see how these youngsters are going to make the bench until we start getting some injuries. But in any case, for what it's worth, I think the result of the weekend is all going to depend on how we start. If we start slowly and we can see the lead, then I think the crowd will get the hump and things can start to go wrong. But if we start well, give the crowd a lift, get an early goal, and if we score first, I could see us going on to win quite comfortably. So I'm going to say 3-1 Fulham this weekend.
Yeah, you go, boy.
Yeah, why not? Like I said last week, let's keep it positive until we have something to really be annoyed about. All right. I think that's just about everything covered. Don, do you have anything else?
No, I think, I think it's going to be a good season. I'm going to say we're going to be all right. Don't panic, people. Don't panic. We still got the January window. I'm sure, Tony Khan is looking at the January window and saying, don't worry. I'm working on the center back or, the defensive signings. So I think it's going to be all good. We're going to be okay. Take a breath.
If we could just do enough between now and January to still be in contention,
exactly,
be in or around the playoff area, and then bring in a centre half, then I still think we've got every chance of competing this season, and even for the top two. What about you, Marty? Anything else to add before we leave these lovely people to get on with their lives?
Yeah, I kind of agree. I mean, it's basically score as more as possible, and you never know. I mean, Mawson and Ream may start a partnership, and suddenly we're like, oh, well, maybe we're not as bad as we thought. But obviously, judging on the last couple of seasons, especially last season, it's worrying. Obviously, it sounds like we might get Michael Hector anyway in January. So, that's something to look forward to. And if we're thereabouts, it's only going to boost to the squad. So I'm excited. It's still good signings that we've brought into this team. So, it's just the defensive side that I think a lot of people are going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, thank you, gents. It's been a pleasure as always. And thank you, everybody at home, for listening. We'll be back on Monday to talk about Saturday's Blackburn game. In the meantime, you can catch up with everything Danny's Fulham Focus Empire has been up to. And it is an empire of probably over 20 of us now, on fulhamfocus.com. You can also search for us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, as well as subscribe to the podcast via all your usual channels. In the meantime, enjoy the weekend. Cheers.
Fulham.